So there's a study that came out a couple of years back that I saw Jordan Uhl on Twitter sent out, and I wanted to share this with you. There was a book written about this too, but this is Forbes reporting it. Take a look. A dramatic spike in suicides between 2008 and 2010, can be linked to the economic crisis, according to a study published today in the British Journal of Psychiatry. This was published back in 2014, actually. Researchers from the University of Oxford compared suicide data from before 2007 with the years of the crisis and found more than 10,000 economic suicides associated with the recession across the U.S., Canada, and Europe. There has been a substantial rise in suicides during the recession, considerably more than we would have expected based on previous trends, says lead author Aaron Reeves, a postdoctoral researcher in the sociology department at Oxford University, and, says senior author David Stuckler, also of Oxford, suicides are just the tip of the iceberg. These data reveal a looming mental health crisis in Europe and North America. Now, they go on to explain very clearly that they were able to link it to economics. Now, they also say, obviously, you're much more likely to commit suicide if you also have mental illness. You also have a predisposition to depression. So it's a confluence of factors. Is confluence a word? If it's not, it should be, because it fits in this sentence nicely. There's a confluence of factors, but they did conclusively find it is tied to the economy. And they go on to say, one of the main reasons we know this is the suicide rate was the worst in Greece, and it was best in Sweden and Scandinavia. And they explain how you have, the social safety net programs in the Scandinavian region, which really soften the blow of any economic downturns and make it so that people don't feel insanely desperate. Whereas Greece is like the other end of the spectrum, where their economic downturn hit the hardest, and it was worse there, and so suicide shot up. Now in the U.S., again, a lot of suicides from the economic crisis. And, I mean, listen, this is an issue that nobody talks about, really, and it's really important. Now, I want to plug something. I just watched it the other day. Andrew Yang, running for president. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and it was a really great conversation. He laid out in detail his philosophy and why he thinks a UBI, Universal Basic Income, which he frames it as the freedom dividend. It's like you're a stockholder in America, and so you get a piece of the pie for being a stockholder in America. He thinks that's part of the solution, and they had a really great conversation about the looming crisis of automation that we're actually in the middle of right now, that we're, constantly losing the most common jobs that people have are now, it's being automated. So that's a great conversation. Check that conversation out. But what you get is a sense of the way the transitioning economy really screws working people and how this needs to be addressed. And I thought that this study highlighted that in a way that no other fact could. That we have thousands of people who end up committing suicide, at least in part because of the economic downturn. So it shows you that poverty kills and bad economics kills. So when we come out here on this show and we argue for a living wage, a right to a union, an end to outsourcing, Medicare for all, free college, when we fight for these policies, there's a lot that's riding on it. I mean, from one argument is just, hey, this is common sense, this is logical, look at all the other developed countries and they function better. But there really is a strong moral argument that this prevents death and desperation among people. And, I mean, this study should shake everybody to their core, because here's the even worse news, if it can get any worse. There's another crash coming. It's just a matter of time. So that means economic suicides will spike even more. And right now, actually, because of how our economy is geared towards the rich and it screws over working people, you already do suicides are still at a high level, and you also have drug abuse at a high level as well. And the average age of death is now coming down for white males. So there's a lot of iceberg straight ahead. If not, we've already hit it, and the Titanic is already beginning to sink. So these are serious problems that need to be addressed, and of course, we're not addressing them seriously We need to have a strong social democratic movement in this country because, again, it's been proven in the numbers that social democracy saves lives. When you have an economic downturn, the social democracies that have strong safety nets lower suicide rate by far. So there's a lot to be learned there.